Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. Another great platformer, excellent graphics. The Game of Harmony. Basically what you do is you have a room that's got different shapes in them. And in this room you have bubbles. And each of these bubbles have pairings of shapes or pairings of designs in them. And you've got your own little bubble. And what you have to do is you have to very carefully manipulate your own little bubble to make the matching bubbles tap each other so that they disappear. And all at the same time keep them from hitting the obstacles, the walls that are in there. And some walls are bigger than the others, and there are obstacles as well. But you try to draw them together so that they make one big bubble so that they disappear. And that's the Game of Harmony. Galaga and Galaxian. Galaxian to me is kind of like a Space Invaders clone, but I loved Galaga because it seems like there was no set pattern. It's a top-down shooter, my favorite arcade game. And there's no set pattern as to which way the enemies come or which way they shoot at you or how they come at you. And I love seeing what the ranks look like at the bottom every time I beat a level. So there's that. And they're excellent adaptations, except for the black and white. Except they're black and white, they're very faithful adaptations of the arcade games. Crystal Quest, kind of like an asteroid game, only you're in a square room, and in each room is a bunch of crystals that you have to fly over before you can leave the room. And of course there are obstacles in the way, and aliens trying to shoot you, and you're trying to get all the crystals. And that's basically it. It's a simple space shooter like that, kind of like asteroids. Cat Trap, you're basically, I don't know if you're a cat or whatnot. Yeah, you're a cat and you're trying to rescue these ghosts. And you're in each room, and each room has different obstacles that you can, and boxes that you can move, or you can use ladders and whatnot. And you got stuff in the way, and basically you're just rescuing these ghosts. Kind of like a Boxel or Escape, different kind of escape games. Play Action Football, your typical football game on the Game Boy. Super Mario Land 3, only this one stars Wario, it's Wario Land. Brain Drain, what you have are a bunch of icons on the screen, and you've got this cursor shaped in split in 4 parts. And what you do is you use the A button to spin this cursor. And what you try to do is you put this cursor on the icons, and you hit the A button, and the icons move counterclockwise or counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on whichever button you push. And you're trying to get all the icons together. And once you get them all together, they disappear. And that's Brain Drain. Kirby's Dream Land. I believe this character was, I think this is the first Kirby game. He turned out to be so popular that they adapted him for the NES. But I got all the way up to the last level, but then I had to fight all those bosses again. I really didn't feel like it, so. But it was still a good game though. Excellent game. If you like Kirby, you can't go wrong with it. Faceball. You're basically a smiley face. And I don't know if this, like Spaceball 20, Spaceball 2000. You're this ball. You're a smiley face. And you're going through these mazes. First person, by the way. It's all first person. And you're trying to shoot all the bad guys to get out of each maze. And It's pretty good for a first-person shooter of its time. But, I mean, it's nothing like Doom or Wolfenstein or something like that, you know. Okay. Stargate. Basically, you're looking down this tube from top down, and they give you these shapes with these designs on them. And you have to drop the designs, the shapes, on top of each other to make them disappear once they get 3 in a stack. That's basically Stargate. It's a puzzle game. It's based on the movie, but it's not a platform or anything like that. Not the Game Boy version anyway. I can't speak for any of the other versions. Casper, based on the comic book. It's a platformer. We're playing as Casper, the friendly ghost. Laszlo's Leap. The graphics aren't exactly as space-aged as the cover art would make you seem. It's basically the solitaire peg game, formed in different shapes, and the idea is to make all the pegs disappear. And that's basically it. It's an adaptation of the old peg game. That's pretty good if you don't want to carry that around. Joe and Mac, a platformer game where you play a caveman. Star Trek Generations. Beyond the Nexus. This is an adaptation of the. This is a simulator based on the movie, the first Next Generation movie from Star Trek, which a lot of people didn't like, which I didn't really like either too much, but you know. Buster Brothers, you basically have this hook gun and you're in a room full of bubbles, full of bouncing balls that are out to hit you. And what you do is you take the gun, you shoot the hook, and you break up the bubbles. And you keep breaking them up until they disappear. And with each one that disappears, every time you make them all disappear, you go to the next level. It's a very tough game after a few levels. It's really tough game to play. Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise. This is a kind of an escape type game where you're in a room full of, that's kind of in a maze like, and you're trying to escape. And what you do is you set up traps for the bad guys by putting the top of a bun at one end of the room and the bottom of a bun at the other end, and you have the bad guys in between, and you're trying to get them in between those buns to trap them and kill them off. You have to pardon me, I got a little bit of a cold, I think. I'm getting there. Okay. Tumble Pop. That's another game where you got like kind of a vacuum cleaner that pumps them, and you're trapping the enemies, and you're pumping them until they die. But it's an escape type game. Ultima, Runes of Virtue. It's an RPG type game. There we go. Burger Time Deluxe, based on the classic arcade game where you have burgers. You're trying to escape all these pieces of food, and you're trying to get them trapped between two hamburger buns, and trying to get the buns to squish them while you try to survive. Pack Attack. It's kind of a... It's a lot like... it's Tetris, but it's basically you got Pac-Man attached to some of the Tetronimos, and you have to drop him down to help you get rid of the Tetronimos. They don't just disappear when you match the Tetronimos. You have to drop the Pac-Man in a certain place to get him to eat the Tetronimos to eliminate the lines. Ren and Stimpy, Vidiots, another platformer starring Ren and Stimpy. Brainbender. This is a game where you have these lasers at 90-degree angles, and you've got a bunch of mirrors placed in strategic places. And what you have to do is you have to turn the mirrors to bend the laser to make the laser point at the at a certain object at the end of the room. And you have obstacles in the way, and there are other things that you have to shoot the laser through, and it takes a lot of thought to do it. And you have to do it within a certain time period too. By basically using your D-pad to move the cursor to the different mirrors, and you have to use the A button or the B button to turn the mirrors counterclockwise or clockwise to make the laser bend to where you need it to go. Xenon 2, an isotropic shooter, space shooter. Operation C, I think it's a Contra game for the Game Boy. Motocross Maniacs. It's a racing game where you have to do a bunch of tricks on a motorcycle. You have to go up certain ramps, you have to go on certain loop-de-loops. This is a very, very early Game Boy game. I think I got this when I got Tetris. Speedball 2, kind of like a football game, only with robots. And Marble Madness. You're this, and you have to go through this maze. You have to manipulate the marble so it doesn't go too fast, doesn't go too slow, and that it doesn't fall off the edge. You have to avoid obstacles, and I believe there is a time limit to each of them. It's a pretty good game. It's a difficult game though. Once it starts once it gets going, yeah, it's a very difficult game. Okay.